When the blood moon rises over the marula trees, the elders say it brings both death and new life in equal measure. That night, as the crimson light painted the village of Kimbila in shadows, young Nia felt her first birth pains begin. The village women had been whispering for months about the strange signs surrounding her pregnancy. Her husband Afolu had died from fever just weeks after planting his seed in her womb, leaving her alone to face whatever the spirits had planned. "Something is not right," muttered old Sekai, the chief's wife, as she watched Nia stumble toward the birthing hut. "The child comes too early, and the moon bleeds red. Mark my words, this birth will bring trouble to our village." But Nia heard nothing except the roar of pain that filled her body like thunder filling the sky. For 2 days and nights, Nia labored in the small hut at the edge of the village. The women who came to help her wore worried faces and spoke in hushed tones. Outside, dogs howled without reason and chickens refused to lay eggs. When the child finally came, sliding into the world with a weak cry, the midwife Adissa gasped and nearly dropped the tiny body. "Look at his face," she whispered, her voice full of fear. "Look at the mark." The baby boy bore a strange birthmark across his left cheek, a mark that looked like a twisted tree with no leaves. The women had never seen anything like it before. "It is the mark of the cursed ones," declared Sekai, who had pushed her way into the hut despite Nia's weak protests. "This child will bring bad luck to everyone he touches. The spirits have marked him as dangerous." Nia pulled her son close to her chest, feeling his tiny heart beat against her skin like a frightened bird. Word of the strange birthmark spread through Kimbila faster than smoke from a grass fire. By morning, crowds had gathered outside the birthing hut, their faces dark with worry and suspicion. Chief Themba himself came to see the child. He was a fair man usually, but even he stepped back when he saw the mark on the baby's face. "The rains failed last season," reminded Sekai loudly, so all could hear. "The crops grew weak, and 3 children died from sickness. Now this cursed child comes among us. How many more troubles will we face if we allow him to stay?" The crowd murmured their agreement. Fear had taken root in their hearts like weeds in rich soil. "Please," Nia begged, her voice barely above a whisper. "He is just a baby. He has done nothing wrong." But Chief Themba shook his head sadly. "The mark speaks for itself, child. The spirits have sent us a clear warning. For the safety of the village, you and the baby must leave before the sun sets tonight." As the sun began to sink behind the marula trees, Nia wrapped her newborn son in the only blanket she owned and gathered what little food the women would give her. Her legs still shook from childbirth, and her heart felt heavier than stones in a deep river. "Where will I go?" she asked Chief Themba one last time. "How can a new mother survive in the wilderness with a baby?" The chief looked away, unable to meet her eyes. "That is between you and the ancestors now. We cannot risk the village for one child, no matter how much it pains us." Nia's sister Lindai tried to follow her to the village edge, tears streaming down her face. But Sekai and the other women held her back. "Let her go alone," Sekai commanded. "Anyone who helps the cursed one will share in her punishment." So Nia walked into the gathering darkness with only her baby and her broken heart for company. The wilderness beyond Kimbila was full of sounds that made Nia's skin crawl with fear. Hyenas laughed in the distance, and strange birds cried out like lost souls. She found shelter beneath a large acacia tree, its thorny branches offering little protection from the cold night air. Her baby whimpered against her chest, hungry and confused. Nia's milk had not yet come in properly, and she had nothing else to give him. She chewed some of the dried meat the women had provided and tried to soften it with her saliva, but the baby could barely swallow the tiny pieces. "We will survive this," she whispered to her son, whom she had decided to call Baraka, meaning blessing, despite what others said about his mark. "Somehow, we will find a way." But as the night grew colder and her baby's cries grew weaker, Nia began to wonder if hope was just another word for foolishness. For 5 days, Nia wandered through the bush country, following animal paths and dry stream beds. Her food ran out on the third day, and she was forced to dig for roots and eat bitter leaves that made her stomach cramp. Baraka grew thinner with each passing day. His cries became whimpers, then silence. The strange birthmark on his face seemed to grow darker, as if the curse was claiming him bit by bit. On the fifth day, Nia collapsed beside a dried-up waterhole, too weak to take another step. Her lips were cracked from thirst, and her vision blurred from hunger and exhaustion. "Forgive me, my son," she cried, holding Baraka's tiny body close. "I have failed you. I could not protect you from their fear, and now I cannot even keep you alive." She closed her eyes and waited for death to take them both. At least they would face the ancestors together. Sefu the hunter had been tracking a wounded antelope for 2 days when he heard the sound, a woman's voice, weak and desperate, singing a funeral song. He followed the sound through the thorn bushes until he found them. Nia lay unconscious beneath a tamarind tree, her baby pressed against her chest. Both looked close to death, their skin gray and their breathing shallow. But something about the scene made Sefu's heart ache with pity instead of fear. He knelt beside them and gently shook Nia's shoulder. Her eyes fluttered open, cloudy with fever and despair. "Please," she whispered, "take my baby to the village. Tell them he died peacefully. Don't let them know he suffered because of their fear." Sefu saw the strange birthmark on the child's face and understood immediately why they had been cast out. But unlike the villagers, he saw only a sick baby who needed help. "No," he said firmly. "You will both live. I will see to it." Sefu was known throughout the region as the greatest hunter alive, but few people knew about his other skill. Deep in the mountains, he had discovered a cave with a natural spring that never ran dry. Around the spring grew healing plants that could cure almost any sickness. He carried Nia and Baraka to this secret place, fashioning a stretcher from branches and animal skins. The journey took half a day, but both mother and child were still breathing when they arrived. The cave was warm and dry, protected from wind and rain by overhanging rocks. The spring bubbled up from deep underground, clear and sweet. Sefu had stored supplies here over many years, dried meat, honey, medicinal herbs, and thick fur blankets. "Rest now," he told Nia as he laid her on a bed of soft grass and furs. "You are safe here. Nothing can harm you or your child in this place." For the first time in days, Nia allowed herself to sleep deeply, trusting that someone finally cared whether she lived or died. Under Sefu's careful care, both Nia and Baraka slowly began to heal. The hunter knew which plants would help Nia's milk return and which roots would strengthen her blood. He made special teas and broths that brought color back to her cheeks. Little Baraka responded to the treatment as well. His cries grew stronger, and he began to nurse properly for the first time since his birth. The birthmark on his face remained, but it no longer seemed to glow with evil intent. "Why are you helping us?" Nia asked one evening as they sat by a small fire at the cave's entrance. "Surely you know what the villagers say about children with marks like his." Sefu was quiet for a long moment, staring into the flames. "My own sister was born with 6 fingers on each hand," he said finally. "The villagers said she was cursed too. They wanted to leave her in the forest to die. What happened to her? My mother refused to give her up. She raised her in secret, and my sister grew up to be the kindest, wisest woman I ever knew. The extra fingers made her a better weaver than anyone in 3 villages. What they called a curse became her greatest gift." As weeks passed in the healing cave, Sefu began to notice something remarkable about baby Baraka. Animals that normally fled from human scent seemed drawn to the child. Birds would land near him without fear, and even shy forest creatures would come close when he was sleeping. "Look," Sefu whispered to Nia one morning, pointing to where Baraka lay on his blanket. A family of meerkats had arranged themselves in a circle around him, as if protecting him from harm. Nia watched in amazement as a brightly colored sunbird landed directly on her son's chest and began to sing. The baby gurgled happily, reaching tiny fingers toward the bird's brilliant feathers. I have hunted in these mountains for 20 years, Sefu said softly, and I have never seen wild animals behave this way around humans. Your son does not carry a curse, Nia. He carries a gift, the gift of speaking to the creatures of the earth. Tears filled Nia's eyes as she began to understand that her child was not evil, just different in a way the villagers could not comprehend. As Baraka grew stronger, his unusual connection with animals became impossible to ignore. Wounded creatures would find their way to the cave, as if drawn by some invisible call. A limping leopard appeared one morning, holding out its injured paw like a dog seeking help. Instead of running in terror, Baraka reached toward the great cat from his mother's arms, making soft cooing sounds. The leopard settled down peacefully while Sefu cleaned and bandaged its wound. The mark on his face, Nia realized aloud, it's not a twisted tree at all. It's the mark of the animal spirits, the sign of one who can bridge the world between humans and beasts. Sefu nodded, understanding flooding his weathered face. The villagers feared what they could not understand. They saw evil where the spirits had placed a sacred gift. Word began to spread among the animals of the mountain. Soon, creatures great and small were making pilgrimages to the healing cave, seeking the touch of the marked child who could understand their pain. Meanwhile, in Kimbila, things had gone from bad to worse since Nia and Baraka's banishment. The promised rains never came, and the remaining crops withered in the fields. Wild animals began raiding the village at night, destroying stores of grain and attacking livestock. Hunters returned empty-handed day after day, reporting that the animals had vanished from their usual haunts. It was as if the very spirit of the wilderness had turned against them. Perhaps, suggested Adissa the midwife quietly, we made a mistake about the marked child. Perhaps his exile has brought this punishment upon us. But Sekai still insisted that casting out the cursed baby had been the right choice. These troubles would be far worse if that demon child still lived among us, she declared, though her voice lacked its former confidence. Chief Themba grew more worried with each passing day. His people were hungry and afraid, and he could not protect them from enemies he could not see or understand. 6 months had passed when Sefu made a journey back to Kimbila village. He found it much changed, smaller, sadder, with empty huts and worried faces everywhere he looked. He requested an audience with Chief Themba and spoke carefully about what he had witnessed in the mountains. The child you cast out is not cursed, he told the gathered elders. He carries the mark of the animal speakers, the ancient gift of those who can heal the rift between human and creature. Your troubles began when you rejected this gift in fear. Sekai scoffed loudly. Impossible. That mark was clearly evil. We all saw it. You saw what you expected to see, Sefu replied calmly. But I have lived with the child for months. I have watched him call wounded animals to safety and bring peace to the wildest beasts. He is not your enemy, he is your salvation. Chief Themba leaned forward, desperate hope flickering in his eyes. What do you propose, Hunter? Let them return. Let the mother and child come home, and see if the spirits do not smile on your village once more. After much debate and prayer, Chief Themba agreed to Sefu's proposal. A delegation was sent to the healing cave with gifts of food and cloth, carrying the chief's formal invitation for Nia and Baraka to return. Nia was afraid at first, remembering the fear and hatred that had driven them out. But Sefu convinced her that people could change when faced with the truth of their mistakes. The journey back to Kimbila was like a royal procession. Wild animals followed them along the path, not threatening, but protective. Birds sang overhead, and even the plants seemed to bloom brighter as little Baraka passed by. When they reached the village edge, a crowd had gathered to witness their return. But instead of the angry mob that had cast them out, Nia saw faces filled with wonder and remorse. Chief Themba himself knelt before her. Forgive us, daughter, he said humbly. We let fear blind us to the truth. We drove away a blessing because we could not recognize its face. Within days of Baraka's return, the village's fortunes began to change. Animals stopped raiding their crops and instead began bringing gifts, wild honey, rare healing plants, news of where the best hunting could be found. The child who had once been called cursed became the village's most precious treasure. Mothers brought their sick babies to be touched by his tiny hands. Hunters asked his blessing before important expeditions. Even the weather seemed to improve, as if the sky itself was smiling down on them. Sekai, who had led the charge against mother and child, was among the first to beg for forgiveness. "I let my fear turn me into something ugly," she admitted to Nia. "I spoke cruel words that could have cost us our greatest gift." Nia forgave her completely, knowing that hatred would only poison her own heart. "We all see only what we are ready to see," she said gently. "The important thing is that we learn to see better." Years passed, and Baraka grew into a young man whose gift with animals became legendary throughout the region. He could calm the fiercest lion with a touch and call birds from the sky with a whistle. But his greatest gift was teaching others to overcome their fear of what they did not understand. Nia became a respected elder, known for her wisdom and compassion. She often told the story of their exile and return, always ending with the same lesson: fear makes us blind to beauty, and quick judgment robs us of miracles. Sefu remained their closest friend and protector, proving that true courage lies not in the hunt, but in standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. The village of Kimbila became famous as a place where differences were celebrated rather than feared. Travelers came from far and wide to learn how one community had transformed fear into acceptance, rejection into embrace. The moral: every person carries gifts that the world needs, but fear can make us cast out our greatest blessings. True wisdom lies in looking beyond the surface to see the sacred purpose hidden within what seems strange or different. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in the power of acceptance over fear, then share it with others who need to hear its message. Subscribe to our channel for more African folktales that remind us of our shared humanity and the miracles that come when we choose love over judgment.